Good morning. It is Monday, April 27th, and I haven't done a garden walk in about a month. So a lot of things have been happening. Finally going to take some time to do a little update this morning. I'm still constantly changing things and getting the garden transitioned over from my spring garden to the summer garden. So things are still changing, still working things out, but that's just how it goes. So let's go see what I have on the hardening off table. And this time of year I don't have anything in the greenhouse because it's too hot. I pretty much shut the greenhouse down in March, the way this year's been anyways. Some coleus flowers and a Mad Hatter pepper that I had planted from seeds that I need to transplant. And then over here I have some more of the tomatillos. That sign is wrong on them. I got to turn it around, but I've been transplanting my tomatillos out and I still have 3 little 6-packs left. And then in here I planted some corn, some trucker corn and peaches and cream, but it's been too wet for them to germinate, so I'm going to have to try again. I think I'm going to direct seed some corn as soon as I get things moved around in my garden. But here is a couple of rattlesnake beans that were planted in here previous to the corn that came up after I planted the corn. And then I have a couple more tomatillos. And then here I have planted some Vidalia onions from seed, and they're coming up and I'm super excited about them. I haven't planted onions from seed in a while, and I got these Walla Walla onions I'm going to plant as well. I mostly plant them from bulbs, but bulbs are getting harder to come by, and I want to try doing it from seed to get more bang for my buck. In the garden, I have also, I bought 50 Vidalia onion bulb sets and set them out. So I followed up with these seeds to get more, to succession plant some more. And here's the rest of my okra. Today, my plan is to get the okra and the rest of the tomatillos planted out into beds. And then here I got some of my Jimmy Nardello peppers that are growing up. I got a bunch of those. I planted extra to share. And they were very successful in germination. So all of those are Jimmy Nardellos and all of those. And then right here I have some Mad Hatter peppers that I planted from seed that I saved from my Mad Hatter peppers that I grew last year that are still growing on my patio. And then here, these bigger ones are yellow bells that I saved seeds from a grocery store bell pepper. And then here are my last bunch of spring, summer tomatoes. I won't be planting more seeds for tomatoes until about late August, September. But I have some Xanadu greens, some bear paw, wolverine, and the Xanadu greens are green with purple shoulders, and then the wolverines are like an orange tomato. I believe that the Xanadus actually may have some red or yellow to them, but the wolverines are like a golden orange color with some purple on them as well. So I've never heard of them or seen them before, so I was really excited to try those out. And here we got some bear paws, and let's see. Then I have a couple of Juliets also here that I'm ready to plant. And then I planted from seed. I got some marigolds and some tender sweet watermelons that I'm trying to germinate. And then I've germinated some old bunching onion seeds that I found. And then I have some cantaloupe that I still am putting into the ground. And then there's some zinnias and some more Mad Hatter peppers. So let's go see what's going on in the garden. I have right here in this big pot, I have my pepperoncinis that I planted from seed. And then I have 2 of the yellow crookneck squash, I believe. It's either yellow crookneck or it's the green zucchini. And then my canna lilies are starting to come back. There's a pink lemonade right there that I planted last year. And that's also, that plant there is coming back from last year. Got some of the coleus that I planted out in pots. And you can see all along the fence I am growing tons of rattlesnake pole beans. I just canned a bunch up with my new potatoes this past weekend, and they are so prolific and so delicious. They're a stringless bean. So here is a Abe Lincoln tomato where the peas used to be, and underneath those are the Vidalia onion sets. And then here I have my bush beans growing in front of my rattlesnake beans. And there's tender green bush beans. And then there's some burpee stringless. And then along the back, I've got more rattlesnakes. And I got a few Kentucky Wonders. And I also have some dragon tongue bush beans. More tender greens. More dragon tongues. And some burpee stringless bush beans growing there. And then that tomato there is a San Marzano paste tomato. One of the most widely used and known sought after paste tomatoes out there. And then the tomato on the end is an Azoica orange. I've grown the San Marzano for a few years, but this is my first time doing the Azoica, like a medium orange tomato, and I love the sweetness and the taste diversity of the orange tomatoes. So we'll go up to here, and here's my carrots that I planted in January, and then there are some yellow onions that I planted from bulb, and then along the edge I just have radishes and a little bit of chocolate mint there. And then here in the old cabbage bed I have another San Marzano that I up-potted that I'm going to be planting. And then in here I have purple tomatillos and the large verde tomatillos. And I'm going to be planting marigolds around the outside of those. And then here I have in this pot that I up-potted is a Paul Robeson. And I'm going to be ripping out the rest of this broccoli in this bed and probably planting tomatoes and okra in here. And then over here I still have California Wonders in the pot and a beefsteak tomato, and I have some Lola banana peppers, some flowers, and here is one of my Phoenix tomatoes that are still going. This is a determinate that I started from transplant from the store in October, and it's a 60-day tomato, and it is 8 months later and it's still cranking out tomatoes for me. It went through the winter, everything, it didn't cover it, just a strong little plant. I just keep cutting the disease off of it and fertilizing it, and it keeps on going for me. So I've got 2 or 3 of them like that. And then in here I have some jalapenos. These are the La Bamba jalapenos. which are supposed to be, I guess, just a large generic jalapeno. And then there I have my Brussels sprouts, which I'm hoping I'll get some Brussels sprouts for the first time. I've planted them year after year, but I've never actually got any Brussels sprouts. But I think that plant might just give me some this year. And then I have a Scotch bonnet tree pepper here that I'm going to be taking out of this space once I change things around here. And then I have some of my Savoy cabbage that are mostly being eaten, a couple of broccoli, but I've been just pulling them out and pulling the broccoli and the cauliflower and the cabbages out once they're done. And then also planted right here a burgundy okra, and I'll have an azoicha. It's growing right here, tomato. And then here in my tire on my trellis is my fire feather and black beauty. So this is the fire feather here. It's supposed to be like a San Marzano type plum tomato, shaped like a San Marzano. And you can see that it has lots of tomatoes on it. And then the black beauty also has some small little black striped tomatoes on it. So I've never grown either one of those varieties. So I'm really excited to see how that goes. And then here's the 4 Bantam corns that my kids planted earlier in the year. And I just have them in here with a couple sunflower plants, and a squash plant, summer squash. And then here I planted out the rest of my squash plants that I had. And then in my file cabinet here, I have some of the blue dwarf kale and my Swiss chard. And I have some romaine that has gone to seed that's ready for me to rip up. And I have some more of the Lola banana peppers right there in that pot. A sunflower, and it's almost about to open. It's a dwarf sunflower. And then here I've planted some Max Pack cucumbers, some National Pickling cucumbers, and some Muncher cucumbers in this bed. And here is the 3 containers that I have of cucumbers. And there is a bunch of cucumbers on there. There's a little one. And here's one. So these are just a mixture of Munchers, pickle bush, Armenian, and there's a couple of market moors in there too that I have germinated and planted in here. So you can see I just have them growing. Got that in a part of a barrel there, and then 2 tires right here. And there's actually a pretty big one right there, you can see. So cucumbers are doing really good. Excited to make pickles. So that's coming up. So in this middle bed, we have sunflowers, poblano peppers. Here is another one of my Phoenix tomatoes that I grew in the fall. And you can see it's pretty defoliated because I keep cutting off the bad stuff. And it's got some more bad stuff on it because it's trying to die on me like they normally do within, 90 to 100 days after you plant them. But it's 8 months strong, and that might be the last of the tomatoes for that one. But it definitely, I'll definitely be saving seeds from the tomatoes that I have in the house from these plants, and plant some more in September for fall. So here's a couple more of the burgundy okra, and some more Scotch bonnets, a pink ox heart. Pink ox heart ain't too happy right here, so I'm probably gonna move him because he is one of my favorite tomato plants, and I want him to be happy. And then back in the back there, I have some California Wonders in that pot and a purple jalapeno. And then here is a pot with some more, there's some Thai chilies. No, this is not the one with the Thai chilies. This is the one with the, it's got a Scotch bonnet, a jalapeno, a Marconi red in there. And then here's another, a cayenne pepper that's growing in that pot right there. Some more flowers and sunflowers. And these are just some Scotch bonnets and banana peppers that I took out of the beds and planted in the pots. And in this bed, I have my my ground cherries. So basically a small orange tomatillo type fruit. First time growing those. Last year we grew a 6-pack of the salsa verde tomatillos, and we loved them. They were so good. And so now we're growing different varieties of ground cherries and tomatillos this year. And this guy, I don't know what kind of tomato plant it is. It ended up with my tomatillos. It fell into some of my tomatillo seedlings. So at first I did think it was a tomatillo, but it's obviously a tomato, and it has a million blooms. I've never seen a tomato plant with this many blooms on it, y'all. I don't know if it's a Napa Chardonnay, a chocolate stripe. It's got some round fruits on it. I don't know, it may be a sweetie. I just don't know what it is. So I know that it is got a lot of blooms on it, so I am looking forward to just leaving it there and harvesting as many tomatoes as I can from it. And then here is my purple onions. And then in this pot right here, I have purple jalapenos. And then I think there might be a couple of purple beauty bell peppers in there too. And then my little stacking planter, I have my strawberries, I have some kale, some mint, some petunias, some chocolate mint, all growing in that. And we'll just go over the squash real fast. This is my spaghetti squash growing. I'm growing about 4 to 6 plants in a 44-inch by 2-foot wide bed, and I have trellised it up. I've built a trellis around it so it can grow up, and it is, these squash on here are growing like crazy. This was the first squash. You can see how big it is, and I put on the pantyhose to help keep the there's another big one to help keep the worms. See, there's some aphids right there. I'm going to spray BT and neem on these guys today. I was going to do it yesterday, but I got really busy. There's another one down there with my canning. Canned up half of the potatoes. Some more right there. Another big one down here. So there's about six spaghetti squash growing on this these plants in this small space right here. So if I get 10, I will be so happy, and that space to me will have done its job. Over here, I've got the same thing going for acorn squash. And I'm not sure what kind of acorn squash this is. Probably just a hybrid or table queen. But it's got a bunch of squash on it, various sizes. I don't know if I'll be able to get in here to see any of the bigger ones with my camera, but it has several of the acorn squash growing on it. And then over here, this is my Peter Pan dwarf patty pan squash growing in one of my 2-foot by 44-inch beds. And I have picked about 5 or 6 off of this bush so far. And I was trying to see if there's any. There's a few of them down in there. and they were delicious. I fried them in bacon grease with some fried green tomatoes. Oh, there's a bunch of them right there. You can see them all clustered up on these two back plants, which are a little bit, I planted a few days later than the front plants. So here is my zucchini squash, one of them, and it has some zucchinis. Here they are. Zucchinis growing right there where that flower is. And then over here is another acorn squash plant. And I think it has, down in there, it has a couple tiny ones. So this one over here in this barrel is not near as happy as the ones that are in that little bed. But here is my grow bag potatoes. So I have pulled out all of my rows of potatoes. I have 3 rows of potatoes and canned up 18 quarts. And I still have half of those in the garage to can. And I still have 6 of the 7-gallon grow bags of potatoes and 4 of the feed sack potatoes going. So I'm going to get a good mess of potatoes this year, which I'm really happy about, because that was one of my goals this year, was to grow spaghetti squash and grow potatoes and grow some melons. So really happy about that. So in here I have some yellow crookneck squash, a couple of zucchini squash. This plant right here, I don't know what it is. It volunteered to grow beside my patio, so I dug it up and moved it. And over here, this little guy right there was a volunteer pumpkin that grew on the side of my chicken yard that I moved over here. And that is a pumpkin that I intentionally planted from seeds, and I'm not sure if it's a Jack B. Little or if it's a black Ukrainian pumpkin. But that beside it, right here, right there, are butternut squash. So on this side of the bed, in the corner, I've got pumpkins and butternut squash, and I'm going to be training them to grow up my trellis, where I have the grapevine, and also they'll be able to grow along the ground. I'm going to put down some cardboard so they can grow along the ground behind my grapevine, because I don't walk in that area, so they won't get trampled. And you can see I got more grow bag potato plants still growing here. My little bee happy sunflower flags. My grapevines, as you can see, are starting to get happy. There's actually baby grapes on them. So we'll be really excited if we get grapes this year, because we haven't gotten grapes yet. So I'll just turn around and keep going down this row here. This is my purple, Cherokee purple. He's got some stuff he's just growing in the ground here. Got some little tomatoes on him. Another fire feather, which I've let branch out to 2 branches. And he's got some little tomatoes on him here and there. And then in this pot here, I have some jalapenos and some scotch bonnets. And in this little pot here, I have another banana pepper, Lola banana pepper. This is one of my husky cherry tomatoes that I grew from fall. I've had to cut a bunch off of it, but it's still going. Here's my bowls that I planted Joy Choy and some lettuce mixes in these bowls. So we haven't had any lettuce for a little bit, so I'm happy to get those going and start some more lettuce before it gets too hot. And this is my raised cinder block bed, and it had radishes planted in the front half of it, and I've pulled up all the radishes, and in the back I have 2 eggplants that I overwintered from last year growing in it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to plant in here yet, but I'm going to be getting it ready to plant something else And then here I have a Rutgers tomato that I got transplanted from. Instead of planting them from seed, I had so many tomatoes going that I just bought a 4-pack, which had 5 in it, at the feed store to have some determinate Rutgers, because I always plant Rutgers. Love them. They're a determinate, very good tasting tomato that grows well in the South. They were developed in the South. So here I have some tomato plants. One of my main tomato areas. I'm growing them in tires. And then I have a couple of metal planters here. There's my dwarf banana plant with a lot of new pups on them, which I want to kind of transplant those out to different containers. And here we have some Kellogg's breakfast that have some little plants on them. You can see how big they are. And then in the middle we have some more of the Firebird feather, and those are the striped San Marzano looking fruits. They'll be orange and red striped though. And here is the Napa Chardonnay, getting some fruit. And my pink ox heart, you can already see the tiny little heart-shaped fruits growing on here. One of my favorite that I grew for the first time last year. Loved it so much. Dr. Ritchie, which is my all-time favorite tomato plant right now. I grew this last year. It's a large yellow-orange beefsteak. And there is a tomato on it right here. And then next to that I have some Napa Chardonnay, which have some little blooms on it. And then I got a blueberry clackamas next door. Grew that last year. It's a large cherry blue tomato. And then next to that I have a chocolate stripe, which doesn't have any on it yet, but that's the first time that I've grown one of those. And another of the Firebird feather that's over here that has a lot of fruit on it. And next to that I have another Kellogg's, which doesn't have any, well, it's got a little one on it so far. And then I have a beefsteak tomato right there. Got a few fruits on it. And then I have a Black Beauty, has a few fruits. Then I have a kitty that likes to hang out with me in the garden. Her name is Trixie, and she is a excellent mouser. Snakes, birds, squirrels, anything. I don't have any problem with squirrels in my garden. Like everyone else is having a lot of problem with squirrels right now. I don't have that problem. I got Trixie. And she does exactly what she was intended to very well. There's Abe Lincoln. And here's another beefsteak. And there's a bigger Black Beauty right there. And another blueberry with a bunch of little blueberry clusters on it. Abe Lincoln. This is another azoitia with several little tomatoes on it. Another blueberry clackamas. So excited to get tomatoes again. My store Roma that I saved from a Roma tomato last year. And over here, another Black Beauty and a Kellogg's breakfast. And the Kellogg's doesn't have any on it yet, but it's got a lot of flowers, so it won't be long. So we'll walk this way in the garden. We've looked at the back row already. Here is where my potatoes were. And so all of those have been pulled up. You can see I still got some more right there to give to my chickens. And I haven't planted anything here. I haven't planted anything in that end cap, but growing in this row, I have watermelon, sugar baby watermelon, cantaloupe, and honeydew. And I believe it's just a Haley's Best cantaloupe, a generic honeydew, green honeydew melon, and one sugar baby. That's all I've had germinate so far. So I went ahead and tucked them in there. So I'm thinking about growing sweet potatoes in this row or this row. So I'm waiting for my sweet potato slips. I'm ready to grow sweet potatoes and my slips aren't ready for me. So in this other one, I have growing lima beans. So these 3 rows in the front are canned green lima beans. And then I have a pickle bush cucumber. And then I have growing up the trellis and planted on the bottom of both sides of the trellis is some Christmas limas. And the ones that are growing up the trellis I planted in the fall that I'm just now picking. It kind of went a little bit dormant through the winter because I planted it too late, but it's still rocking and rolling. And planted some more new Christmas lima starts down there about a week ago. And then right here in front I have some royalty purple and some wax, Cherokee wax bush beans. And then in this planter I have ghost peppers and habanero peppers. And in this planter I have some more habanero peppers and just the orange ones and a purple jalapeno. And then that brings us to the back of the garden that is up next to my chicken run. And there's my sunflowers. You can see they're all starting to bloom now.